For more on this, we're joined by international relations expert Professor Robert Patman. Kia ora, Robert. Thanks so much for coming on with us tonight. There had been some real reluctance to take this step and risk drawing NATO countries into this conflict. So what has changed, do you think?
I think there's always been a bit of a debate within the NATO countries about the best approach of dealing with Mr. Putin. As the war has unfolded following the Russian invasion, I think there has been a cumulative realisation within the ranks of NATO that Ukraine could actually, with the right support, win this war. And this follows, of course, the successful counteroffensive of the Ukrainians in the last quarter of last year. So I think, yes, there's been a shift in opinion within the NATO countries, and the belief is now that Ukraine, with the right support, can win the war. And I think the German decision to release these tanks to Ukraine is part of that reassessment.
Well, speaking of the right support, Ukraine also wants air support now. For example, the American F-16s. Will they get that kind of help too?
I think it's entirely possible. I think that F-16s, there've been discussions around them, and the Ukrainians would dearly love to get them. We should remind the viewers that the Russians are preparing a major offensive, probably in February, and so I think the Ukrainians are trying to get as much hardware as possible, and they're doing quite well in that direction, with the US recently releasing $2.5 billion in additional assistance in heavy weaponry for the Ukrainians.
Well, with that offensive next month, and with Ukraine having access to these weapons, how will that change how the war progresses from here?
I think, judging by the irritated tone of the Kremlin's response, the Ukrainians are going to be even more competitive. And remember, the Ukrainians have done very well in the war so far. They're the smaller power against a much bigger one. I think they'll be targeting the Crimea because they see if they can retake Crimea within the next 6 months, that could lead to Mr. Putin losing political power in the Kremlin. So that may well be a target. But I expect them to become even more competitive than they have been on the battlefield in the next few months.
OK, we have about 30 seconds to go. Russia has described the supply of these tanks as dangerous and provocative. What will the repercussions be there?
I think we just have to take that with a pinch of salt. After all, the Russians can close down this war within the next 24 hours if they withdraw their invading troops back to international borders. They're clearly irritated by the growing support that NATO and other countries are demonstrating from Ukraine, but they did illegally invade a neighbouring country, and so they'll have to deal with those consequences.
Robert, thanks so much for your insights tonight.
Thank you.